can, but she still can't believe that she has kissed Arthur. And although she's anxious, she's also quite negative, saying that it's his loss if he didn't like it. On the other hand, Arthur is stunned. He can't believe that he has kissed a 13-year-old girl, and he thinks that he's a criminal. But he then remembers that in this new life, he's 12 years old. After a few days, Arthur leaves the hospital. Using a cane to help himself walk, he heads off to see his personal training room together with headmistress Cynthia and Gideon, who is impatient about showing him his new iron humanoid creation, with the power of a yellow core magician, although Arthur destroys it with a single blow. Below the city of Xyrus, in a previously unexplored dungeon, Barian dispatches a great number of beasts that, for some strange reason, are twice their normal size. In his hands, he holds a banner with some emblems unknown on this continent. 3 days went by after that incident. During that time, Arthur was training to exercise his body, but the time has come for him to teach his first class. He's not entirely ready, so while he is heading towards his class, Kathleen helps him. When he arrives, everyone is stunned to see him arrive with the princess so close by him. But there are many who don't accept that Arthur should be a professor, so a student challenges him, thinking that anyone who defeats him will be able to become a professor. The rest of the students support him, but it was enough to unleash a bit of his power to shut everyone up. Starting his class, he shoots some basic questions about the way in which conjuring and augmenting wizards use mana. After getting a couple of right answers, he calls 3 conjuring and 3 augmenting wizards, and he makes them cast a spell. He then orders the augmenting wizards to shoot the spell and the conjuring ones to absorb it, something which makes no sense to anyone, since it's common knowledge that once a spell has been cast, it's impossible for a conjurer to absorb it, or for an augmenting wizard to shoot it. But Arthur gives them a small demonstration. Being an augmenting wizard, he shoots a wind spell with a descending potential, which leaves everyone stunned. He then calls the rest of the students to try. The only one who got close to doing it was Kathleen. When his class ended, many left frustrated, and many others left wanting to try it again. While he was sitting, Kathleen shows up, and she asks for his permission to sit next to him. Arthur jokes for a bit with her, but they then have an awkward silence, until she tells him that she has something important to tell him. Arthur, remembering the headmistress' words, thinks that he doesn't want to cause a fight between humans and elves. But quite differently from what he imagined, she apologizes for what happened at the auction house 4 years ago. She felt that she owed him an apology for her father's bad behavior. After leaving it clear that it wasn't necessary, he heads towards his next class, which goes by in a blink. After finishing, Elijah arrives running, telling him that the headmistress wants to see him in her training room. Arriving there, he only meets Tesha. Since the kiss, he has avoided seeing her, but they proceed with the beast assimilation. Since he's a 4-element wizard, he can help any wizard, and he can serve as a battery while Tesha uses the majority of her mana, instead of trying to take control over the beast. When they finish, Tesha asks him if he's angry with her for having kissed him. Arthur's frustration shows, and he handles the topic with a little humor, avoiding answering. This bothers Tesha, who gets up and leaves. But before leaving, she tells him that he's good at fighting and magic, but not at everything. That's why she tried to soothe his feelings, even when he knows what she feels for him. She also says that everyone who's close to him notes how he wears a mask and pretends that he's happy all the time. Tesha's words were spinning inside his head. He even tried clearing his mind by training a little, but it was impossible. However, he is interrupted by Professor Glory, who went looking for him and Tesha. After finding out that she's not there, she makes Arthur go to his last class, but not without first thinking about why someone like him has such a colossal training room. The rest of the day was no different. He couldn't even pay attention to everything since he was thinking about Tesha. At night, while he was going towards his room, 3 shadows appeared behind him. Lucas, together with 2 students, orders Arthur with a menacing attitude to tell him how he escaped from his fire domes, and where Tesha is, under 1 second. Arthur tells him that he doesn't have anything to say to him. Lucas simply says that it's surely because of an artifact that Tesha gave him. At that moment, Manhwa, one of his companions, starts exuding mana uncontrollably while he says that he used the same tricks to seduce Princess Kathleen, and that she only deserves a nobleman like him since she picked up his handkerchief. Lucas only smiles while he watches him go insane, and he then attacks Arthur. His strength is above normal, and his mana fluctuation is abnormal. Lucas, acting like the victim and washing his hands off the situation, retreats. Arthur tries to protect himself with a wind shield, but it's useless. Manhwa has completely lost his mind. While Arthur was considering what to do, Sylvie transforms into her dragon form and leaves him unconscious with a single blow. Claire then arrives, and uncovering his back, some glowing mana runes can be seen running down Manhwa's back. Next, Claire tells him that he's not the first one. While he was recovering, there was a similar case, and as they are entering the headmistress' office to inform her of what happened, they come across two other people. These are Spears, Baron, and Aaliyah. After exchanging a few words with Cynthia, Baron's eyes meet Arthur when he's exiting. Sylvie warns him that both are too strong. After explaining everything that happened to Cynthia, Arthur suspects that she knows something about the marks, but she doesn't reveal any information. After telling her that the discipline committee members will do some patrolling after classes, they leave. While he is on his way, he sees how Lucas is being rebuked by his brother, Spear Baron, so he decides to hide in order to spy them for a moment. If he wants to kill Lucas, he must first become stronger to defend himself from Baron, and he releases a bloodthirst. With no time to react, Spear Aaliyah puts her weapon on his neck, and she comments that that is a fairly strong bloodthirst, but he won't be able to do anything to Baron, even if he is a two-element wizard. She also tells him that he's one of the most powerful spears, and that there is a great difference between them even though she's also a white core wizard. Before parting, she says that if her brother was still alive he would be his age, and she strokes him lightly on the head. On the following day, the discipline committee members have a meeting where it is announced that Manhwa died. They weren't able to control his mana loss. However, they are certain that the marks on his back had something to do with it. But no information was revealed to them, and they organize new groups to patrol at night. Later, that same day, after falling asleep in Gideon's class, he reproaches Sylvie for not waking him up to go to his next class. When he arrives, Professor Glory says that she won't take any risks until he's healed entirely, so she makes him rest in a booth, where he meets Tesha. Tesha breaks the ice saying that he doesn't have to give any explanations. She overreached and she said things that she shouldn't say. Arthur tells her that it's easier to deal with magic and with training than with feelings, since feelings can't be trained, and also that he can't have a relationship with her. Or at least not for now, maybe when they're older. Tesha then jokes, telling him that if he's not sure, she will wait for him, and she asks him if she can trust him, telling him that she won't go out with anyone else. Arthur tells her only to give him some time, and he kisses her on the forehead. He keeps a poker face the rest of the day, and Sylvie makes fun of him. On the other hand, Tesha is also thinking about the kiss and she pictures what their children would be like. At night, when they were on patrol, Arthur and Theo catch two students who were scribbling on the walls with messages against elves and dwarves. As soon as Theo left with the two captives, Arthur felt someone's presence, and he hid. Looking at the stranger, he noticed the runes on his back, and he went quickly after him, following him closely so that he would lead him to his lair. But Kai's appearance foils his goal, since the latter screams his name and alerts the other student. However, at that same moment, his transmission dagger turns on. It's a help signal from Theo. Arthur is already suspicious about Kai, but he will look into that some other time. Curtis and Dorothea arrive with Theo. He says that someone attacked him from behind and left him unconscious, but he was able to wound his assailant in the arm. It must be someone strong to be able to knock out someone like him. Remembering his encounter with Kai, he had a bandage on his hand. The next day, he wasn't able to pay attention in his classes, since everything seemed suspicious to him, including Kai's demeanor. Despite searching again, they didn't find anything. But he was able to clear his mind while he was helping Tesha with the assimilation of her mana beast. They then had a good time together, but they're interrupted by the headmistress, who comes in with various wounds. Tesha runs to help her, but she says that it's nothing. She just had an encounter in order to release stress. Arthur has been suspecting for some time that she's hiding something, but he doesn't know if it's good or bad. Spears, Aaliyah, Baron, and the strongest one, Vere, have an emergency meeting to take new measures. The piece of cloth that Baron found is made of a mana beast that is either unknown or from another continent. But the most unusual thing is the diversion of large bloodworm packs, from which it follows that something made them change course. Aaliyah, as one of the best sensory wizards, will be tasked with investigating. On the following day, Elijah is training with Toby. He throws some rock spikes at him, but Toby dodges them, and before making another move, Elijah manages to knock him down. When he thought he was done, the automaton throws a fire spell at him, but Arthur saves him with a direct hit, and he says that Gideon sneaks in at night to add new features to his creation. Elijah is interested, but he says that doesn't attract girls. Arthur makes fun of him and he throws a wooden spear at him so that he can practice with him. He's impressed by his skill, steady steps, always balanced, moves that take little time, together with his unusual metal magic. He could be a great warrior, but he decides to knock him down and he gives him his hand. Elijah, turning, sees a figure behind Arthur. He had blonde, short hair, and he was wearing a military suit. A storm of feelings starts to consume him: wrath, guilt, rage, envy, treason, all in an instant. The feelings intensify, and he starts to scream, everything being accompanied by a big headache. Arthur tries to help him, but he doesn't know what's happening. Before he can take him to the infirmary, he decides to get up and tell him that he will see him in the room. Days go by, and each day when he wakes up, he tries to spend a good time with the new people that he has met. But the only one who has changed is Elijah. From that day on, he appears distant, and it seems as if he's upset at Arthur all the time. Even Sylvie notices. After helping Tesha with her assimilation, she's confident about the dungeon raid that they will do the next day. But Arthur warns her not to be too confident. She hasn't recovered all her strength yet, and it may be dangerous. Although he was joking, she tells him not to treat her like a girl. But Arthur reminds her of his words when he met her. She throws him over and she starts hitting him while on top of him. But a voice interrupts them. Old Virion has come to see his granddaughter, but he jokes that he didn't know she was already a grown woman. Tesha, realizing this, stands aside and asks him to stop making those jokes. She asks him to come with her on the raid, but Arthur tells her that it wouldn't be a problem. However, she must visit her family that evening, so Virion finds the way to bring Tesha with him. Below, on the beast clearing, Spiralia traverses a dungeon. She discovers a usual pattern that has been left by the bloodworms, and that they all lead to a single place. So she decides to go in, and she comes across a Hades serpent. But something unusual happens to her. A dark aura engulfs her. She's well known for not taking care even of her offspring, but she's watching over the entrance to a tunnel that is emanating great amounts of mana. So she contacts Spear Vere, who tells her that he will send a 50 battle wizard squadron. She just has to wait. When Arthur gets home, his family is waiting for both of them. They realize that he will go get the gifts. The night went by, and they all had a pleasant time. Arthur takes his sister to her room and Tesha has a chat with Arthur's mother. She asks her whether she's worried about Arthur. She tells her that even if he becomes stronger than all the spears together, she will worry about him, since dungeons can be unpredictable. On the other hand, Arthur tells his sister about how he became a professor until they fall asleep. When they arrive at the beast's clearing, Sylvie tells Arthur that she's going hunting. In that way, they all go into the dungeon. Entering, Arthur notices that he doesn't need to cover his body in mana to avoid the cold, thanks to his new beast will. But there's something weird in that dungeon. They don't find any beasts on the first 2 levels. When Professor Glory was thinking about exiting, a large number of trackers appeared in front of them, which forced them to retreat. However, Lucas is reluctant to retreat, and he shoots an attack next to Glory, and they all are in agreement with him in order to test their skills. So they form small combat groups. Although they don't have troubles, they're unused to long battles, and the number of roamers doesn't decrease. So Glory orders again a retreat, but 2 beasts of great size appear in front of them. Glory launches into attack to win time, and she orders Arthur to find an exit path. So with the help of some earth spell, they create a path. But they have another problem. A large amount of rocks is covering the exit, and if that weren't enough, the beast's stench is building up, and they are running out of oxygen in a closed space. That's why she cautions not to use fire. She then calls on Curtis to use his celestial fire attack to clear the way, but he doesn't have much mana, so Arthur takes off his suppressor, and he transfers some fire mana to Curtis. Ready, Curtis releases his attack. With everything in place, they start to retreat, but a quake startles them. A beast even larger than the previous ones appears. It exudes a sinister aura. Its strength is enormous, and Glory is no match for it. Therefore, Arthur prepares to fight, although Curtis tries to stop him. But his arm gets covered in blue fire, leaving Curtis and Claire stunned. Together with Glory, they start to attack the beast. Glory tries to win some time, while Arthur prepares his attack. After a wind and lightning combination, he creates a lightning hurricane. But his arm gets dislocated. The attack did have an effect, but not the one he expected. The beast is still attacking them, so Glory takes Arthur away. But he doesn't manage to pull his sword from the beast's body. After thinking that they had left the beast behind, it reappears, and with one of its claws it pierces Arthur's leg, self-destructing after that. Arthur falls into a cliff, and a rock leaves him half unconscious. With a wind attack, he manages to cushion the fall, but he suffers a lot of damage. But thanks to his beast will, a great part of the damage disappears. Now the only thing left is to find a way out of there, which seems easy since he finds a cave that emits light. But he never imagined what he would find on the other side. Several masked battle wizards, the majority of which are pierced by some black iron spikes. A voice is asking for help. Every way he looks, there are only masked corpses until he finds the voice's source. Spiralia is blind. She has a gap on her breast, and if that weren't enough, she's missing her legs. Arthur tries to infuse mana into her core, but it's completely shattered. Aaliyah asks him where he knows her from. Arthur says that they met before in the academy. She tells him not to try anything, since her core is broken. Arthur asks who is capable of doing that. She gives him a small black artifact, and she tells him that thanks to the little mana that she gave him, she will show him who's responsible for this. After waiting for the attack squadron to arrive, they kill the Hades serpent. but when they extract its core, it disintegrates. Entering the cave, they find a being with 2 onyx horns protruding from its head, and it ejects some dark mana, killing several wizards in one instant. It then tells them that they have 2 choices: die fighting or kill each other. It will allow to live whoever is left standing last. But this is not an option for anyone, and the beast starts attacking them. And as if they were completely insignificant, it kills the majority of the soldiers, summoning those black iron spikes from the ground. But Aaliyah manages to harm it, and she takes one chunk off its horn, which she gives to Arthur. The beast says that it doesn't care what they do to it, since the war is close. It rejoices in saying that it was once told that when the body loses one sense, another sense improves, and it tears out Aaliyah's legs and leaves. The pain is unbearable, and Aaliyah simply asks to be killed. The scenes are harrowing, and Arthur vomits because of what he just saw. The spear breaks, letting Arthur see her fear, and she says that she doesn't want to die. Arthur can only hug her, but that is not enough, and in that same moment, Spear Aaliyah of Dickathon dies. Looking inside the rest's memories, the same image would always repeat itself, the being that resembles a demon. Arthur creates tombs for the fallen ones, and for Aaliyah, an ice tomb. Sylvie waited patiently in her dragon form, and then they set off back to Xyrus. Arthur went straight to his house. In front of his house, he doesn't think he'll be able to enter. He knows that everyone is worried for him, but he doesn't think he can tell them what happened. Aaliyah's words still ring in his head, her anguish and her fear of death. For 1 second, he wishes that she may have the same luck as he and be able to enjoy a second life. A few steps are heard behind. It's his father, who tells him that he doesn't have to explain anything. Life is not a single battle. It's fine to lose sometimes and learn from that to stand up again, and be able to become stronger to win the war. And for the first time in a long time, Arthur yields to his feelings and he starts crying under the night aurora of Xyrus. Next morning, at the academy, he gives headmistress Cynthia Aaliyah's medallion. The horror in her face is quite evident, and she asks if he saw the one who did this. When Arthur says no, she tells him not to get further into this. It's already in the council and the other Spear's hands. Arthur decides to take the day off and he goes shopping with his family. But it's evident in his face that not everything is fine, so he asks where the closest magic artifact shop is located in order to clear his mind. Tabitha tells him that a few streets up there is a famous elixir shop. But when he gets there, he finds a sordid establishment. But a voice puts him on alert. An old man is sitting on the floor and he asks him for a coin. And in an instant, he snatches the coin away from him. And when he tells him that that's not the one that he wanted, the old man disappears. When he tries to open the door, he must use a great amount of mana. Inside was the same old man from a moment ago. He tells him that he can pick something of the same value as the coin. And despite looking in every corner, he doesn't find anything that persuades him. But a small cat draws his attention. Its eyes seem to come from another galaxy, and just as fast as it appeared, it went away. At that point, Sylvie arrives, and the old man is left in trance looking at her. Not finding anything that interests him, Arthur decides to leave. But the old man gives him a small white orb, and he tells him that he'll need it later. Leaving, they come across the cat again, which smiles at both of them before leaving. Underneath the Xyrus Academy, Lucas is welcomed into a small nobleman cult that opposes the union with the elves and the dwarves, so they treat Lucas with contempt. But before they can do anything, their leader incinerates them. Lucas is interested in him since he can't feel his core's color. He tells him that he needs him for his plan to succeed, since he's got the council and the headmistress busy. He only needs him for his plan to be perfect. He offers him the same marks that Manhwa had. He was weak. If he accepts, he'll be able to beat Arthur Lewin. Arthur is received by Elijah with a hug when he arrives at the academy. He was worried about him, but not just him. Claire and Curtis sustain slight wounds, and Tesha is in her training room, so he decides to go. While he's getting close, he feels Tesha's out of control mana. Virian was next to her, but Tesha is wrapped in a vine cocoon that starts to attack Arthur. It seems like the mana beast is taking control over Tesha's core, and it resents Arthur for having killed it. But when he wanted to unsheath its sword from its ring, the only thing that comes out is the white orb that the old man gave to him, and it goes inside Tesha's body, who gets her mana overflow under control. After taking her to the infirmary, she says that she's fine, but that something happened to her core. Virian, inspecting her, notes that Tesha is at the initial stage of a silver core. Advancing 3 stages in one stretch is an exhausting blow for the body, so they let her rest. Arthur uses the opportunity to ask how strong the spears are, to which Virian replies that 10 platinum core wizards are required to attempt to face a white core wizard, and that even that doesn't guarantee their victory. Victor says that what he's about to tell him, he can't tell anyone. Hundreds of years ago, humans, elves, and dwarves were nomads. They only met to trade, but they had an alliance. However, life was hard for everyone because of the mana beasts, which considered them prey. After several years, the numbers of the three races dropped until a deity descended from heaven, which gave 6 artifacts to the ancestors of the current royal families. They had to pick 2 of their most powerful warriors in order to be named knights after a soul vow, and be able to access the artifacts that gave them the ability to control mana. They were the ones tasked with spreading that knowledge, the first generation of wizards being born thus. Together, they were able to banish the beasts into what is known today as the Beast's Clearing. Then, they all took different paths. After several generations, their descendants forgot about their alliances, which triggered the war from 100 years back. But the spears have always been in hiding and close to the royal families. However, their existence was only made public because of the discovery of the new continent, in order to give hope to the population and calm them. But should it be revealed that there are artifacts capable of creating white core wizards, there would be chaos among the families that want power. He also reveals that Sylvie is a deity, but she's not the sort of thing considered a deity by religious texts. Instead, she is a being capable of harmonizing entirely with mana. Such beings are capable of attaining unreachable power levels. He also gives him a warning. The world is changing and he must be ready for the role that such a change will play. Arthur heads to the old artifact shop's location, but the shop has disappeared. Instead, he finds another orb and a note, which tells him to go to the transport portal to Elenwar. Next morning, after having breakfast with his family, he heads towards the portal, but when enters, something weird happens. Some mana binds trap him and drag him to a dark place. Sylvie transmits her fear to him, but a great amount of mana makes them lean. In front of him are a pair of eyes that he had already seen. Then, everything turns white. The same dark cat with the galactic eyes appears. After saying that they'll finally be able to have a calm chat, it turns into a human. He's taller than normal and he has pale skin, and his hair is gold, almost white, and he introduces himself, "My friends and brothers call me Winsome, but beings like you call me God." Cynthia heads to Xyrus after having a meeting with the council, but she is attacked from the back. Some wizards with runes on their spines. They all have their eyes bandaged. She quickly knocks out the majority with her sound magic, and she knocks down the rest with her wind magic. Suddenly, her beast transforms and starts devouring them. She asks one of them what their plans are, but he says that he will never say anything to a traitor. There are spies infiltrated throughout the continent, and the war is about to start. Before he says anything else, Cynthia kills him. When she pours an elixir to heal her wounds, Cynthia reveals the runes on her spine. Arthur is nervous. He can feel that the being before him is immensely more powerful than the spears. But before starting their chat, he asks him if something happened with Tesha or Virion, since he made him go to the portal that leads to Elenwar. The being called Winsome tells him that it was just a coincidence, and both are fine, thanks to the orb, which prevented Tesha's core from exploding. He tells him to keep the other, since it's a gift for him. Then, with magic, he summons a projection of the world. He tells him that Dicathan is not the only continent. There's another one called Alacria, and both are ruled by them, who live in the continent called Ephiatus. Although historically lesser beings have called them deities, they call themselves asuras. They never intervene with the lesser beings unless peace or balance is threatened. Ephiatus is divided into 3 factions, each formed by multiple clans of different races. The dominant clan of each faction has its own privileges, but they have all stayed on the sidelines and they don't interfere with the minor races. However, everything changed when Agrona became the leader of the Vritra clan. They broke that rule to try to get closer to the humans, but then it was discovered that they had been experimenting on the humans of the Alacria continent to find a way to improve their skills. Arthur, after hearing him, tells him that has nothing to do with him. Winsome agrees with him and he makes Sylvie transform into her dragon form. He then tells him that he is linked to the granddaughter of the most powerful being in the 3 continents. Her lineage makes her fearsome even among the Asuras themselves. And although the pride of the higher-ups at Ephiatus prevents them from admitting it, his link to Sylvie makes him a key piece for winning the war. So, as long as he agrees to cooperate with them, they won't separate him from Sylvie. Arthur tells him that the war on that continent concerns his family and friends, so he's obliged to participate. What he really must ask him is if he's willing to be a pawn under his command. Winsome tells him that he's smarter than he'd thought and to get ready to go train in Ephiatus. Only in that way will he become stronger and be able to give hope to this continent. On the other hand, the committee members have an emergency meeting. The acts of discrimination between races have drastically increased, and they still know nothing about Arthur. But they are interrupted by Elijah. Before he can tell them that Arthur is alive, the sound of a great explosion puts them on alert. The Tri-Union Hall, a symbol of peace and unity between the 3 races, is burning. Quickly, with the help of a professor, they manage to put out the fire. But the damage is done. Charles, a nobleman and a member of the Radicals, is the main suspect. But the committee members are prevented by the professors from doing anything without proof. Elijah is training. His control over earth magic is better than before, but he's not very efficient. His several feelings against Arthur are still present, but he remembers that Arthur was always by his side when he needed him, so he will become stronger to be on his level and be able to stay by his side. Meanwhile, Arthur arrives at the palace in Elenwar. A quake alerts him, and then part of the castle is destroyed. Virion then appears and tells Arthur that Tesha has completed her beast's assimilation, but she still can't control its power, so they both activate their beast will. Virion goes into the second phase and he cuts the vines, while Arthur goes directly towards Tesha. He manages to calm her down and her power overflow stops. Seeing the damage they have caused, Virion tells them it's time to go, but he doesn't say where. While Tesha sleeps, Virion tells him that she was too confident when she told him that she wanted to activate the beast's will's first phase. But her assimilation being too fast, everything went out of control. Arthur feels that the beast inside Tesha is different, something is happening with her. But he says that he will do everything he can to be by her side and protect her. Taking advantage of this, Virion asks him if he loves his granddaughter. Arthur says yes, but he doesn't know if what he feels is love or fraternal love, a feeling that one has for one's family members. But he will find out in time, and when he's ready, he will ask for permission to marry his granddaughter. Tesha, who had been faking being asleep, doesn't know what to do with what she just heard. When they get off the carriage, the Elf Kings are waiting, but nobody knows why they are there, until Virion tells them that they will go see Rhaenyra because he wants to see Arthur's future. On the way, Tesha's father thanks him again for having saved his daughter. It was thanks to him that he was able to interact with humans again. Her mother was one of the victims of the war with the humans, and they abducted his daughter later, which engendered in him contempt towards them. But a 4-year-old human boy not only saved his daughter and brought her back to her home, he was even able to indict his attitude. So he says that he has his blessing if he wants to marry his daughter. But they are interrupted by Rhaenyra, whom Arthur attacks because he thought that she was a monster. When they arrive at her lair, she puts everyone to sleep with a sleep agent, since she wants to speak in private to Arthur, and she explains how her powers work.